Crossovers. Joe Public love them. Car enthusiasts hate them. I see them as a kind of necessary evil, really. But what if you could get a crossover that was actually interesting? Maybe even, I don't know, fun. Fun is exactly the idea behind the Puma ST. Ford have quite cleverly given the car to the Ford Performance division, that's the boys and girls behind the Ford Mustang and Ford GT, and just said, hey, go nuts. And they've made several substantial tweaks. They've given it better looks, more performance, more power, better body control, and all in all, turned it into a car that on paper just wants to bring out the rebel inside of you. As far as I'm concerned, it's genius. I can't think of another performance crossover that goes head to head with the Puma ST. I mean, there's stuff like the Porsche Macan, but that's a much more expensive, much bigger car. This thing could be in a class of its own. So, is it any good? Is it fun? And is it desirable? On the outside, I think, yeah, it is really cool. Certainly very different to your average Fiesta, and in fact, most of your generic crossovers on the market today. It looks pretty much like a standard Puma, but they've made a few changes. You now get this ST badge at the front and some glossy elements here around the grille and on these lower sections, plus a Ford Performance lower splitter, which allegedly provides some downforce. You also get a couple of choices of alloy wheel, some glossy wing mirrors, a glossy roof, glossy door blades, and up here at the back, a glossy rear spoiler. But the lower diffuser is finished in this scratchy black plastic instead of the glossy stuff. Missed opportunity there, I think, maybe. But twin exhaust and the rest of the package on the whole makes this look like a pretty decent proposition. It's not all good news though, because this car has the world's worst parcel shelf. I opened this and within about sort of 2 minutes, I'd already snapped off this little plastic section accidentally. So now I can't actually put it back. It just flops around like that. That's pretty diabolical, really, isn't it? Yeah, must try harder.
Luckily, the Puma ST still comes with a fantastic mega box, which allows you to store everything from ice to dirty wellies to goldfish, and has a handy drain plug. Inside, there's plenty of tech from Apple CarPlay, Wi-Fi, and an app that lets you locate or lock or unlock your car remotely. Click the link on the right-hand side to check out our full review of the standard Puma to learn more.
Let's talk about the engine, shall we? The basic Puma comes with a 1-litre engine that makes a maximum of 155 horsepower. This thing uses the 1.5-litre 3-cylinder engine from the Ford Fiesta ST. It doesn't make any more power, 200 horses at 6,000 RPM, so it pays to keep your foot in, but that kind of grunt is actually quite decent in a car of this size. The engine sounds pretty good as well. I love the sound of 3-cylinder engines because of that delicious hum you get. And also I'm hearing pops and bangs from the exhaust. Nothing too outrageous, too obnoxious, but just subtle enough to give you a bit of encouragement to put your foot down. Torque is up from 290 Newton meters up to 320 compared to what you got in the Fiesta ST. And even though this car is 100 kilograms heavier than the Fiesta, doesn't really feel it in a straight line. You put your foot down and it still delivers 0 to 62 in 6.7 seconds. Decent. And the best part, all of that power goes through a 6-speed manual gearbox, the same one that you get in the Fiesta ST, and it is actually pretty damn good. Now, Ford's manual gearboxes haven't always been the best in the world. I'm talking about things like on the Ford Focus RS and the Ford Mustang, they kind of felt a little bit mushy, but in this, certainly not the best, but nowhere near the worst. And the gearbox has another little trick up its sleeve. You don't actually have to lift to change gear. All you gotta do, put your clutch down and the car handles the rest. It's kind of a gimmick, let's face it, because this car isn't the kind of car you're gonna take to a drag strip, but you know, it's a cool addition, I like it.
The Puma ST has 4 drive modes: normal, eco, sport, and track. In each, the car makes slight changes to the engine mapping, throttle, and steering response while progressively easing off the traction and stability control settings. In normal, it's a perfectly usable daily car, while sport and track allow you to get the most from that 200 horsepower engine.
200 horsepower isn't a massive amount, but believe it or not, front-wheel drive cars can struggle to put even that amount of power down. But in the Puma ST, you get the option of a Quaife limited slip differential between the two front wheels when you get the performance pack, and it works really well. This car doesn't struggle whatsoever to put its power down, especially through lower speed corners. What lets it down though is the steering. They've increased the speed of the steering by 25%. 25%, and that's quite a lot. And what it means is that the steering is hyper responsive. Even the tiniest of inputs causes big movements in the body. On a track, it's probably not too big an issue, but out on these B roads, which is bread and butter for a hot hatch, having a hyper nervous steering system is disconcerting. I'm normally a fan of quick responding steering, but I think they've just gone a little bit too far with this. These seats don't help too much either, to be honest. You sit quite high up in the Puma, it's a crossover after all. And what tends to happen with hyper nervous steering is that you feel your body moving around, and it's quite disconcerting. I would much rather have a lower seating position in order for me to feel much more part of the chassis, much more part of the car, much more part of the driving experience. I'm also not sure I'm a big fan of these Recaro seats anyway, because even though they are really supportive and the material they use is actually quite grippy, I don't know if they suit this car's character. This is a crossover. This is a car that people are going to daily drive hundreds of miles potentially, and I don't know if they're comfortable enough to go on long journeys. I'm a couple of hours into my drive and I already feel as if they're a little bit on the extreme side.
Let's talk agility. It's certainly heavier than the Fiesta ST, but Ford have done some work to help make it as agile as possible. It has a 24mm anti-roll bar at the front, and the rear twist beam has an integrated 28mm anti-roll bar, which makes it stiffer than the standard car, and even stiffer than the Fiesta ST. That gives it really impressive body control through corners. But driving this car fast, especially as you approach a bend, isn't the nicest experience because of the brakes, which are this car's biggest problem.
They're certainly big enough, 325mm up front, bigger than you get on the ordinary Puma, but they're too grabby, they're a bit too snatchy, and they're hard to modulate around town. You hear me talk about brakes being easy to modulate, and that's important, and these aren't. Here's how I like my brakes. Light pressure gives you light braking. Medium pressure gives you medium braking. Heavy pressure gives you heavy braking. The modulation in this works a bit differently. Light pressure gives you hard braking. Medium pressure gives you an emergency stop. Hard pressure, you just don't bother with because you're gonna end up with your face in the steering wheel. On a track, I suspect the brakes would actually be quite nice, but out on the public road, especially at slow to medium speeds, well, they're not very good. The other issue is the price. Puma ST starts at £28,500, give or take, with the optional performance pack costing an extra £1,000. And that is a bit of a problem because that puts it very close to some extremely stiff competition, the likes of which include the Honda Civic Type R, which has a lot more power by around 100 horsepower, a lot better acceleration, better handling, and also no real compromise when it comes to practicality. It just makes you wonder, have they dropped the ball with the Puma ST? Is it worth it?
Well, I'll let you decide. This car should have been brilliant. The standard Puma is the best crossover on the market, so adding performance should only make it better. But for me, the changes they've made here in the pursuit of speed are just too aggressive. It's too expensive, the steering is too nervous, the brakes make you feel like a learner driver, and the seats, well, I just don't particularly like sitting in it. So for me, and as much as I love Ford performance, this is yet another crossover that might just leave you scratching your head.